"You double-cross me, I'll kill you. Cancer is killing me," Steve McQueen told his doctor in 1980. But those weren't his last words. Just before his death, the Hollywood rebel made a final confession that changed everything. From his secret connection to the Manson murders to the real reason he quit fame at his peak, McQueen's deathbed revelations tell a story more shocking than any of his movies. Steve McQueen was born on March 24, 1930, in Beech Grove, Indiana. His father, William, was a stunt pilot, but he left before Steve was even born. His mother, Julia, struggled with alcohol and couldn't take care of him, so when Steve was just 3, she gave him up. This made Steve feel unwanted and unloved. Later in life, he said, "When a kid doesn't have love, he starts to wonder, am I good enough?" These feelings of rejection stuck with him and shaped who he became. Steve grew up during the Great Depression. Life was hard for everyone, and money was always tight. He went to live with his grandparents, Victor and Lillian, in Missouri. They did their best to care for him, but times were rough. They eventually moved in with Steve's great-uncle Claude, who owned a farm. Steve remembered farm life as tough but also important. It taught him how to work hard and take care of himself. But he also struggled in school. He had dyslexia and partial hearing loss from an ear infection. These problems made him feel like he didn't fit in, and school only made him more frustrated. When Steve was 4, his great-uncle gave him a red tricycle for his birthday. It might seem like a small gift, but it changed everything. That tricycle sparked his love for racing and anything with wheels. It was the beginning of a lifelong obsession. Later, he became famous for his love of motorcycles and even raced in big competitions like the Barger 1000. He ended up owning around 140 bikes in his life. What started with that little tricycle became a huge part of who he was. When Steve was 8, his mother decided to take him back. She moved him to Indianapolis, where she was living with her new husband. But things only got worse. Steve's stepfather was abusive, and home was no longer safe. Steve turned to the streets and joined a gang. For the first time, he felt like he belonged. He said, "When you're in a gang, you're one of the boys, you're accepted." But being in a gang also meant trouble. By age 9, he was living on the streets and stealing hubcaps to survive. When Steve was 14, he got caught stealing. The police took him home, and his stepfather gave him a brutal beating. But Steve fought back. He told him, "Touch me again, and I'll kill you." That moment changed everything. He was sent to a reform school called the California Junior Boys Republic in Chino. At first, he hated it. It felt like a punishment. But over time, he started to adjust to the strict rules and routines. By the time he left, McQueen wasn't the same person. That place shaped him in a way nothing else had. Even after he became rich and famous, McQueen kept going back to Boys Republic to talk to the kids. He stayed connected to the school his whole life because it meant so much to him. At 17, McQueen made another big choice. On April 13, 1947, just after his birthday, he joined the Marines. He needed his mother's permission because of his age. She had struggled for years to deal with his wild behavior and probably saw this as a way to straighten him out. Before joining, McQueen had drifted from one odd job to another. One of those jobs was with the Merchant Marines, but he walked away from it while in the Dominican Republic. Joining the Marines gave him some direction, and he began basic training at Parris Island in South Carolina. But things didn't go smoothly. McQueen's rebellious side didn't disappear. He often clashed with his superiors and had a hard time following rules. In fact, he was demoted 7 times, dropping from private first class back to private. His worst moment came when he disappeared for 2 weeks to see his girlfriend. For that, he spent 41 days in the brig, with the first 21 days surviving on just bread and water. It was a rough start. Even with all this trouble, McQueen had moments where he showed real bravery. He worked as a tank driver and mechanic in an armored unit. His most heroic act happened during a training exercise in the Arctic in March 1949. While near the Labrador Sea, his ship hit a sandbar, and several tanks with their crews fell into the icy water. McQueen didn't hesitate. He dove into the freezing sea and saved 5 Marines from drowning. This act of courage earned him a lot of respect. After that, things started looking up for McQueen in the Marines. He was given an important role in the Honor Guard, protecting the USS Williamsburg, President Harry S. Truman's yacht. It was a prestigious job and showed that McQueen was starting to turn things around. He served until 1950, leaving with the rank of corporal. This was a big achievement for someone who had so many issues early on. McQueen often said the Marines changed his life. He credited them with teaching him discipline and helping him grow up. He once said, "The Marines made a man out of me. I learned how to get along with others, and I had a platform to jump off of." He talked about this in many interviews, saying the lessons he learned there helped him succeed later on. You could see this discipline in his acting career. McQueen was known for his dedication and focus. In The Great Escape, 1963, he even insisted on doing his own stunts, including the famous motorcycle chase scene. His toughness and attention to detail came from what he learned in the Marines. On movie sets, he was respected for his professionalism and ability to take charge. Even after leaving the Marines, McQueen stayed connected to the military. He supported veterans, visited hospitals, and went to events honoring servicemen and women. He never forgot how much the Marines shaped him, and he made sure to give back in his own way. Steve McQueen's life changed in 1952 when he decided to become an actor. He used the GI Bill, which helped pay for his studies in New York. Before this, he had a rough childhood and served in the Marines from 1947 to 1950. The GI Bill gave him the chance to train at famous acting schools like the Neighborhood Playhouse and HB Studio. His first ever acting moment on stage was surprising. He spoke in Yiddish in a play by Molly Pan. He said, "All is lost," in Yiddish, which was an unusual start for him but showed how different his early journey was. While studying, McQueen spent weekends racing motorcycles. He competed at a local racetrack, making about $100 each time, which would be worth over $11,000 today. Racing wasn't just a way to make money, it became a passion he loved for the rest of his life. McQueen's acting career started small. In 1955, he acted in A Hatful of Rain on Broadway with Ben Gazzara. Before that, he had smaller roles in off-Broadway plays like Peg O, My Heart. He kept working hard to get better at acting. Later that year, he moved to Los Angeles to try his luck in Hollywood and lived in Echo Park. His first big break came on TV. He appeared in a 2-part story called The Defender on Westinghouse Studio One. His performance got noticed by a manager named Hilly Elkins, who helped him land small roles in movies. Around this time, McQueen also tried something unusual. He was a judge on a music show called Jukebox Jury. It was one of many things he did to get noticed. In 1958, McQueen got his first major movie role in The Blob, a low-budget science fiction film. He played a teenager trying to save his town from a deadly alien creature. Even though the movie cost just $110,000 to make, it earned $4 million. McQueen's character wasn't just fighting the monster, he also represented the rebellious spirit of young people in the 1950s. This made the movie more than just a monster story and gave McQueen his first real breakthrough. A chance to shine soon after McQueen became a TV star, he played Josh Randall, a bounty hunter in Wanted Dead or Alive, which ran from 1958 to 1961. His character was tough but also kind, which made him different from other bounty hunters. The show was a hit, and people loved Randall's unique weapon, a short rifle called the Mayor's Leg. Steve McQueen's big break came with The Magnificent Seven in 1960. He played Vin Tanner, a skilled but unlucky gunslinger in a western based on the classic Japanese film Seven Samurai. This role changed his life and made him a star. At the time, McQueen was stuck working on the TV show Wanted Dead or Alive. He wasn't supposed to do movies, but he faked a car accident, claimed he was too hurt to film the show, and freed himself to join the cast. It was a bold and risky move, but it showed how far he was willing to go for his career. On set, McQueen clashed with the film's lead, Yul Brynner. McQueen loved being the center of attention and found small ways to stand out, like shaking his hat, adjusting his gun belt, or playing with his shotgun. These little tricks were meant to grab the audience's focus, and Brunner noticed. He was so annoyed that he hired someone to count every time McQueen fidgeted. Brunner even threatened to remove his hat, knowing his bald head would immediately draw all the attention back to him. Despite the tension, McQueen's performance stole the show. The movie was a big hit, earning $65 million, about $600 million today, and made McQueen a rising star. Years later, when McQueen was fighting cancer, he called Brunner to thank him. He admitted Brunner could have gotten him kicked off the movie but chose not to. Brunner replied, "I am the king, and you are the rebel prince." In 1963, McQueen's role in The Great Escape made him a Hollywood legend. He played Captain Virgil Hiltz, an American prisoner of war trying to escape a German camp. His character's defiance and charm made him unforgettable. One scene, where he bounces a baseball against a cell wall while in solitary confinement, became one of the most iconic moments in movie history. But what truly set him apart was the motorcycle chase. McQueen loved motorcycles and pushed for this scene to be added. While he rode most of the sequence himself, the famous jump over a barbed wire fence was done by his friend Bud Ekins. McQueen even played some of the German soldiers chasing Hiltz because he was such a skilled rider. The bike, a Triumph TR6 trophy disguised as a German motorcycle, is now displayed at Triumph's factory in England. The movie was a huge success, making $1.7 million, over $100 million today, and boosting McQueen's fame even more. His paycheck for the film, $100,000, was huge for the time and showed how valuable he had become. In 1966, McQueen took on a serious role in The Sand Pebbles, which earned him his first Oscar nomination. The film, set in 1920s China, told the story of a rebellious Navy machinist named Jake Holman. It was a tough shoot that lasted 9 months in Taiwan and Hong Kong. McQueen got sick with dengue fever, lost 30 pounds, and had to be hospitalized, but he kept going. Between takes, he drank milkshakes to keep his energy up. His dedication paid off, and his performance impressed both audiences and critics. The movie tackled big themes like racism and imperialism, which made it especially powerful during the Vietnam War era. It was a box office hit, becoming the fourth highest-grossing film of 1966 and receiving 8 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture. Some people thought the movie was too long, but the director refused to cut it until he saw how audiences reacted. McQueen didn't win the Oscar, but the nomination proved he wasn't just an action star, he could handle emotional and complex roles too. Steve McQueen's career hit its highest point in the 1970s. First came The Getaway in 1972, a crime thriller directed by Sam Peckinpah. McQueen starred with Ali MacGraw, and their on-set affair caused a huge scandal. Ali even left her husband, Robert Evans, who was a big Paramount executive. But none of that drama hurt the film's success. It made over $36 million in the US and Canada, even though it cost just over $3 million to make. McQueen also made a smart deal to get 10% of the movie's earnings. This made him a fortune. In 1973, McQueen starred in Papillon, a movie about a man escaping from a brutal prison. The filming was tough, with scenes shot in remote locations. It cost $12 million to make, which was a huge amount at the time. McQueen's performance was incredible, especially in a scene where he comes out of solitary confinement looking like a completely broken man. Many people think this was his best acting ever. The movie was a big hit, earning double its budget in just 1 year. These two films showed that McQueen wasn't just an action star, he could handle serious drama too. Then came The Towering Inferno in 1974, a massive disaster movie. McQueen played a fire chief and starred alongside big names like Paul Newman and Faye Dunaway. For this movie, McQueen made history by earning $12 million, the highest salary any actor had ever made at the time. In today's money, that's about $70 million. McQueen and Newman had a bit of a rivalry about who got top billing, so they made a deal. Newman's name appeared first on the left side of posters, but McQueen's name was slightly higher on the right side. McQueen also insisted on doing his own dangerous stunts. The movie was a blockbuster, earning $55 million in North America, over $320 million today. It was nominated for 8 Academy Awards and won 3. McQueen was on top of the world, but all the pressure and the physical demands of his roles made him decide to step back. In 1974, at the height of his fame, McQueen shocked everyone by quitting Hollywood to focus on motorcycle racing. For 4 years, he stayed out of the spotlight. He traveled across the country in a motorhome with his collection of vintage motorcycles. He even entered off-road races like the Mint 400 and Barger 1000 under a fake name, Harvey Mushman, to avoid attention. During this time, McQueen turned down huge movie offers. He could have made over $50 million. But he didn't seem to care about the money anymore. When McQueen returned to acting in 1978, Hollywood had changed. New stars like Al Pacino and Robert De Niro were now dominating the industry. McQueen tried to make a comeback with 2 final movies. The first was Tom Horn in 1980, about a cowboy legend. The production had many problems, and McQueen even directed parts of the movie himself, though he didn't get credit. The movie got mixed reviews and made only $9 million, but some people thought it was one of his best performances, showing a more mature side of him. His final movie, The Hunter, 1980, came out just a few months before he died. It was about a real-life bounty hunter and had some action, but it didn't leave a big impact. Steve McQueen's life was as wild as the movies he acted in. His relationships were full of love, betrayal, and heartbreak. He married Neil Adams in 1956, and they stayed together for 16 years. They had 2 children, but their marriage was far from happy. McQueen cheated on her constantly. Adams later revealed that he told her he had slept with 535 women in just the last 2 years of their marriage. This number showed how much strain his behavior put on their relationship. In 1969, McQueen narrowly escaped a horrific fate. He was supposed to go to a dinner at Sharon Tate's house on August 9, but he changed his plans at the last minute after meeting a random woman. That change saved his life because that night, the Manson family committed their infamous murders at Tate's home. After this, McQueen became paranoid. He started carrying a loaded Magnum pistol with him everywhere. His second marriage to actress Ali MacGraw in 1973 was also filled with trouble. They started their relationship as an affair while filming The Getaway, which ended MacGraw's marriage to producer Robert Evans. Their relationship was fiery and intense, but McQueen was controlling and continued to cheat. The marriage only lasted 5 years, ending in 1978. His third marriage to model Barbara Minty in 1980 came just months before he died. This final relationship seemed more peaceful and gave him comfort in his last days. McQueen had 2 children with Neil Adams, Terry, born in 1959, and Chad, born in 1960. Even though his personal life was messy, he cared deeply for his kids. McQueen also struggled with drug abuse for much of his life. His ex-wife Neil said he started using drugs early in their marriage, and it only got worse. He used marijuana, cocaine, peyote, and LSD. In one scary incident, he took peyote in the Colorado desert and went for a motorcycle ride, almost killing himself. His drug use was especially bad during the filming of Le Mans in 1970. He partied heavily, which caused chaos on set and hurt the movie's success. He also abused prescription drugs and mixed them with alcohol, making his behavior even more erratic. McQueen was known for being difficult to work with on movie sets. He fought with directors and co-stars, often delaying productions. During The Towering Inferno in 1974, he had a bitter rivalry with Paul Newman. McQueen even counted how many lines Newman had and demanded the same number. He went so far as to hire a screenwriter to add 12 more lines for himself. Newman called him a chicken for this. McQueen also clashed with directors like Sam Peckinpah during The Getaway, where their arguments nearly ruined the production. In 1978, Steve McQueen, known as the King of Cool, began to suffer from a persistent cough. At first, he thought it was a minor issue. He quit smoking and took antibiotics, hoping to get better, but instead of improving, his symptoms grew worse, and he struggled with shortness of breath. After almost a year of these problems, doctors performed a lung biopsy on December 22, 1979. The results were devastating. McQueen was diagnosed with pleural mesothelioma, a rare and aggressive cancer that affects the lining of the lungs. He was just 49 years old, still at the peak of his career, and had been the highest-paid actor in Hollywood only 5 years earlier. The diagnosis shocked everyone. Pleural mesothelioma is linked to asbestos exposure and usually takes decades to develop. By the time McQueen's cancer was discovered, it had already spread to his abdomen and neck, causing severe pain. Doctors considered it incurable, and his prognosis was grim. Within months, his condition worsened significantly. McQueen believed his cancer came from his time in the United States Marine Corps, where he served from 1947 to 1950. During his service, he worked aboard a troop ship, removing asbestos insulation from pipes. At the time, asbestos was widely used in military equipment, and the fibers he inhaled likely stayed in his lungs for years, leading to the disease. McQueen's case highlighted the long-term health risks of asbestos exposure, especially for veterans. About 30% of mesothelioma cases in the U.S. involve veterans, as asbestos was commonly used in ships, aircraft, and military buildings during the mid-20th century. As his condition worsened, McQueen desperately sought a cure. Conventional treatments like chemotherapy and radiation did not work. In 1980, he turned to alternative medicine and went to Mexico for help. There, he met Dr. William Donald Kelly, a controversial figure who claimed to have a revolutionary cancer treatment. Dr. Kelly had lost his medical license and was known for using unproven methods. McQueen began a strict treatment plan that included an organic diet, high doses of vitamins, coffee enemas, and daily injections of Laetrile, a drug made from apricot pits. Laetrile was not approved in the US and was considered ineffective and dangerous by many doctors. At first, McQueen seemed to improve and even spoke publicly from Mexico on October 3, 1980, thanking the clinic for helping him. He said, "Mexico is showing the world a new way of fighting cancer." But this improvement didn't last long. His health quickly declined again. In his final days, Steve McQueen had some deeply emotional conversations. One of the most memorable was with Billy Graham, the well-known evangelist. McQueen shared his life story and spoke about his newfound faith. Graham later described him as a fighter, even though McQueen's health was failing. In another recorded conversation during his last months, McQueen talked about his illness and faith, saying, "My body is broken, but my spirit isn't broken. My heart isn't broken." He wanted to use his experiences to inspire others, showing hope despite his struggles. Before his final surgery, McQueen spoke with his doctor, Dr. Cesar Santos, who noted McQueen was in severe pain but fully aware of the risks he was taking. In October 1980, just a month before his death, McQueen made a heartfelt public statement from his hospital bed in Mexico. Through his wife Barbara, he asked fans to keep your fingers crossed for his recovery. This message showed a rare vulnerability from a man who had always been seen as strong and invincible. At that time, McQueen was undergoing experimental treatments in Mexico, having tried everything conventional medicine could offer. He spent $375,000 on controversial methods by Dr. William Kelly, which included coffee enemas, vegetable juices, and large doses of vitamins. These treatments were widely discredited, but McQueen clung to them out of desperation, fighting against the odds. Even as his body grew frail, McQueen stayed connected to his fans. His request for support wasn't just a plea, it was a final act of defiance against the cancer that was slowly taking his life. This message became even more significant when, just 32 days later, McQueen passed away on November 7, 1980, after a risky surgery to remove tumors. His last public words reflected his spirit and his unshakable connection with those who followed his career. In his final moments, McQueen's last words to his wife Barbara were simple but deeply meaningful, "I love you." These words captured the love and bond they shared. Steve McQueen passed away at the age of 50. His wife Barbara arranged for his body to be cremated, and his ashes were scattered over the Pacific Ocean as McQueen had requested. He had also asked for no funeral services, keeping things simple and private. McQueen's death left behind a legacy of toughness and rebellion, but also vulnerability and hope. At the time of his passing, his body was unrecognizable, weighing just 150 pounds, a far cry from his strong and muscular prime. Despite this, his final wishes reflected the man he had become. Instead of flowers, his family asked for donations to the Boys' Republic in Chino, California, reform school that McQueen credited with turning his life around. Steve McQueen's life and death showed a remarkable transformation, from a rebellious, invincible star to a man who found peace, love, and faith in his final days.